Well, yeah, that's a completely different conversation. I could get into the economics of why Mr. Beast is doing what Mr. Beast should be doing, and making a government do what Mr. Beast does will just be a huge waste of money. But
It would be for anybody else, right? But he does it, and then he kind of feeds it back into his channel.
well, I made a comment on somebody's post the other day. I mean, he found a way to make it profitable to himself to do good. Like that's the ideal situation.
And he doesn't stop doing good, right? I mean, on his birthday, he gave away 26 cars to people who didn't have enough money to buy a car.
Yeah, and I've heard some of the horror stories. I remember one of the big kerfluffles with him was because he like a manager at a store let it slip that he was talking about being there, and so a ton of extra people came expecting him to be there, and he didn't because it became a security hazard at that point when people knew he'd be there. And then everyone got pissed off because they're gonna have to pay for their groceries that week, and carts were left like just out, food, and it's like this has nothing to do with him. This is some asshole who kind of broke the confidence and frankly ruined a good thing.
Say what you want about him, but he's actually doing good stuff. And he's like 26, right? So he's doing. Now I looked it up. He actually is. But he just turned 26, and he's been at this for 10 years, which baffles my mind. But back to marketing. So the one thing also that it took me a couple of years for creators and especially indie creators to understand is your marketing strategy needs to go further than, hey, help me out and buy my book or buy my whatever. I see so many creators struggling, and what they do is say, hey, it would really help me if you'd buy a copy. Nobody cares but your mom, right? That's
actually something I did have thoughts on, is because one of the things I do, like I'm currently working on a marketing book of my own, based around Dungeons and Dragons and teaching nerdy people like the basics of marketing. And one of the things that I do harp on is that marketing is relationship building. Now, how you start that relationship, if you're using a technological tool like you offer, that's all fine and dandy. But the bottom line is you're trying to keep people happy with a thing that you do. And making a lot of friends that are influential isn't a bad idea. The problem is that you can't have people buying something for goodwill. People have to be buying something because they want the product. That's what, and that's a thing people that use the IRH hashtag, I think, struggle with a lot, is that they're aiming for the other creators in the space and kind of living off the goodwill of the other guy who understands their plight. But they need to get that out of their heads. These are people that can help you in certain ways, perhaps educationally, perhaps putting you in front of other audiences, like with podcasting and reviews and things like that. But they're not your buyers. You need to go and find those audiences that you connect with that are interested in that thing that you have, like, because how long are you going to be able to live off your mom and your aunts buying your books? Eventually, they're not going to want to either. Goodwill can only go so far.
Oh yeah, they're going to want free copies. Trust me.
Exactly.
And by the way, if you're writing a book, I will warn you, everyone you know is going to want a free copy of that book. So don't count on your friends coming out and buying a bunch of copies of it. Everybody you know is going to want a free copy. And that's not a bad thing. I've given a bunch of them away over the years, but one of the things that you'll also find is when you're selling books or things in the Dungeons and Dragons space, which I played since, 1982 or something. And I see a lot of indie creators in that space struggle, is that you have to put something together that's quality, and nothing sells your stuff better than word of mouth, right? So if you put something together that's pure junk, people will talk. If you put something together that's really good, people will talk, but not as much. Right? People are much more prone to complain than they are to actually say anything positive. So quality matters.
I'm actually working on a video kind of in relation to that. It's that I hear so much complaining these days about like the Nerdrotics of the world and the EFAPs, that all they do is complain about TV, and if they didn't complain and didn't watch these stupid shows, they'd start making good shows eventually. Now, aside from the economics of the fact that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are going to ideologically pay for those things using your retirement funds until they, go into ideological oblivion, it's just not true. Like, the bottom line is the reason that those people talk about is because people are gravitate towards it. And like in marketing, the whole point you're trying to do is because what we're doing is just disruption marketing, and you're stopping people doing something that they want to do. So the only way to do that is to enter the conversation they're having. And like usually the conversation they're having is, I'm pissed off because I wasted time on this thing that I used to like. It's rarely, they're rarely thinking about the thing that they enjoyed, frankly. That's the old Milan Kundera unbearable lightness of being. It's the times that are bad that shape you, not the times that are good.
Yeah, and it's like take the book industry for instance. So I've thought for a while about, hey, should I go find a publisher or an agent or something? And part of the trouble is, unless you're an A-list author, you still do your own marketing anyway. So all you're really doing is kind of handing percentages off to different people. And until you have people coming to you to represent you, it's almost not worth bothering with. So it's, for some people it is, but just in my space, it's not. The action thriller space, or in the serial killer space, which I wrote a serial killer book. The fact that I was getting divorced when I wrote the serial killer book is completely coincidental. My ex-wife is still alive. Didn't put any of it into action, but it was fun to research. But when you go off to market these things, you have to think, and I have people come after me on Twitter once in a while. It's like, oh, self-promotion. Oh my God. I'm like, if you're not going to promote yourself, nobody else will. Right. You have to get used to that. And it's the moment you start to try to self-promote, somebody's going to come along and be critical of you no matter what, because you've done something original and they haven't, and they're pissed off.
I enjoy the thing I made. I think others will enjoy it too. I have no problem telling people about it, period.
Yeah. If you're not passionate about it, how do you expect other people to be? And like, I saw this creator the other day, who posted something like, hey, look, I've got a new thing out. I'm sorry I had to charge so much. It's $6. I'm like, dude, if you're apologizing over $6, your marketing plan is broken.
Oh, I remember. I commented on that because it just blew my mind. I'm like, no, I will never apologize for what I charge. I charge what I charge, and that's there for the people that want what I have, period.
Yeah. And if you sell copies, great. If not, that's good too. And, you have the other thing I will tell creators, that if you're thinking of getting into the creative field, especially in the book space, there are an infinite number of people who are going to come at you asking to get paid. There are cover artists, editor, beta readers who want to get paid. I mean, you name it. There are people out there who are going to try to tell you, you need their service and you got to pay them a whole bunch of money or your book is going to suck. And I've used them before. Beta readers, I don't use, I just don't. Partially because I want to tell the story I want to tell, and a beta reader tries to influence that story with something they want to see in it. And I don't care. I hate to sound arrogant about that, but I don't care. And one of my books has over 1,000 Amazon reviews with a 4.2 star average, I want to say. So I can tell a pretty decent story.
Well, I mean, I would imagine for someone who's as data driven as you are, you probably know why you're telling the story you're telling in the first place. You don't need anybody who's not as data driven mucking up the gears.
Yeah, exactly. And like in one of my books, I thought this was really funny. So the other thing you have to get used to, and this is off topic a little bit, but when you're a creator, you will get reviews that you look at and go, what the heck is this person smoking? And do they understand that the rule is puff, puff, pass, not puff, 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 puff some more? Because I get this one review on a book of mine called The Last World War, which is a book about a fictional nuclear war that hit the United States and parts of the Middle East. And somebody in the review section said, well, these guys clearly don't understand nuclear physics or combat injuries. I have a PhD in physics, and I worked in nuclear physics for a while, and my co-author is a combat medic who did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. So my guess is we're pretty close. and the reviewer is not. But let's let that part go, right? So you have to be able to let these 1 and 2 star reviews just go. Some people are just going to leave no matter what, and just cope with it. So, you're never going to get perfect.
Well, I mean, it's too easy to make enemies online anymore that people will rage bait and, send people just because you said something political they don't like, and now they got to, send the people after you.
Yeah. Like I posted, like, speaking of politics, like I posted something the other day, about, I forget what it was, but somehow and it was like not political at all. It was like something about puppy dogs or whatever. And somehow the comment section turned into politics. And I'm like, how the heck did that happen? I had to mute it. It just got to that point where it was nuts. Because it went for like 60,000 views or something, and had a couple hundred comments underneath it, and it all turned into massive politics. I don't remember what it was. It was something about one of the dog shelters or something, and I was going to go adopt a puppy, and somebody was like, "Oh my god, the dog shelters!" And it just turned into like a raging politics thing, and I'm like, "Dude, good lord, whatever."
Yeah, that's interesting how that can turn that way.
Yeah, when you can take a puppy post and turn it into politics. But on the marketing side, the one thing I can tell everybody is, tools matter. If you're not used to marketing and you're not going to hire a professional, having the right tools and being persistent matters. Keeping the right tempo matters. If you're going to post, nobody wants. It's like take social media, which is the only real marketing space left for creators. If the only posts you ever make are marketing posts, nobody's going to follow you. Right? It's called social media. You need to be social. You need to talk about the subject matter that you're interested in. I talk about Dungeons and Dragons and books, and well, my kids. And those are kind of my only three subjects. I will occasionally talk about puppies because I have a dog, or my tarantula because I have a tarantula. Sometimes I'll venture into, Mr. Beast or something that Taylor Swift did because my daughter's into Taylor Swift and she rubs off on me by osmosis. But you will find people with similar interests, and when you find those people with similar interests, they tend to buy the same stuff you do.